Hey, this is Gina Grad.
Hi, this is Teresa Strasser.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Errico.
Hey there, this is Casey Cavalier.
I'm Rocky Rose.
And you are listening to The Jay Franzi Show.
Lucky you.
Welcome to The Jay Franzi Show, a behind-the-curtain look at the entertainment industry with insights you can't pay for and stories you've never heard. Now, here's your host, Jay Franzi.
Well, hello and welcome to the show. I am Jay Franzi, and this is your backstage pass to the entertainment industry. This week, we get to talk with a guitarist. We get to talk with Garrett Landers. We'll talk to him about what inspired him to pursue a career in music, the importance of mindset when it comes to performance, and we'll discuss what it's like playing in Britney's lipstick. Now, Garrett, he's an amazing guy, and I can't wait to talk with him tonight. So if you would like to join in, comment, or fire off any questions, please head over to jfranzi.com. Now, let's get started. Garrett, sir, how are you?
Good, doing good. Jay, how you doing?
I am hanging in there. So why don't you go ahead and just kick it off by telling us how you got the passion to start in music in the first place?
All right. Well, I saw the Sting video for Every Breath You Take, and he's playing the big upright bass in the video.
Right.
And I thought that was just the coolest thing I've ever seen in the world. And the riff that was playing, I was like, this is it. That's what I want to do. I want to be Sting. I want to play bass. I want to play that riff. Only to find out that that riff that I wanted to play was not the bass, and it was actually the guitar. But from there, I did the orchestra playing the upright bass, and I loved it. I fell in love with performing. So I did that for a little bit. But let me tell you, I'll go back to a quick story on that. So in the back of this practice room in the orchestra, we had 3 bass players, and I was second. But we did this one song I remember, it was called Walking Basses, which was the coolest thing because I didn't have to use the bow. I could just use, finger plucking, which is what I wanted to do all the time. So we came up with this part where there was a stop, and we're like, at this one break, we're going to spin our upright basses. It'll be really cool. So we're like, all right, we're getting there, and I'm boom, 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 and all this, and we get to that point, we spin our basses, they all collide, wood chips go flying everywhere. Oh my God. I had chips out of this big upright bass and everything. It was unbelievable,
Nice.
So that was interesting, so that was a lot of fun. Nobody in my family was musical or played musical instruments for the most part. My dad would kind of hit on the top of the car as we're driving, and he's telling me how he should be a drummer. He's got the beat. He was into like Motown stuff, but we'd listen to a lot of Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and stuff like that. He was always like, I should have been a musician, So at this point, I'm thinking, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So one day I just called up our local music shop, and I said, I want guitar lessons. They said, fine, it'll be, $10 an hour or whatever at the time. Come on in on whatever day it was. So I didn't drive at the time. I wasn't 16. So about 2 hours before the music lesson, I'm like, hey, Mom, I need you to take me to this music store. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, I got a guitar lesson. She's like, what? What do you mean you got a guitar lesson? So she's like, all right, fine. So she takes me up there, and I get to the guitar lesson. And I remember the guitar teacher's name was Jerry. He comes in, looks at me. I'm like, hey, I'm here for my guitar lesson. And he's like, where's your guitar? What do you mean? I thought you just supplied me a guitar. So he's like, no, you gotta bring a guitar, So anyway, they had one, they brought in one and everything. And had my first music lesson there on guitar, which I found very boring because he brought out some Mel Bourne book, and I'm playing Yankee Doodle Dandy or something like that, which was not what I wanted to do. So I went to a few more, and then I quit because I didn't want to learn Mel Bourne stuff. And then that's when I found out there was a guitar magazine called Guitar for the Practicing Musician, and it had tablature to songs I wanted to learn. I'm like, that's all I need,
There you go.
Yeah, I don't need any Yankee Doodle Dandies or whatever, and learning music. So started totally on the guitar tablature route and went through there. And Went to college down at Ohio State, started playing some more, went on to some website, I don't even know what it was, Craigslist or something like that, and I heard guitar player wanted, for this band. So I'm like, I'm going to go try out. I probably won't make it or whatever, but I'm going to go do it anyway. It'll be a good experience for me to get some practice in and go do that. Go down there for rehearsal, learn the songs that they wanted me to learn, jam through those pretty good. At that time, somehow I learned how to kind of solo on my own a little bit. So I was going beyond what the song was because there was a lot of blues type of, 12-bar blues songs and things like that. So I was able to change them up a little bit. And I guess it sounded pretty good. So I ended up joining that band for a little bit. And then thought, well, I don't know if I could do it or not, but they took me in and kind of showed me the ropes. So that was like the first band that I was in that I started rehearsing with and kind of understanding what goes into a band a little bit.
So what was that like?
I think I was kind of green at the time with that one, but they ended up booking us some gigs. And as I get to the gig, I've never been to a gig. I'm nervous. I didn't even know how to set up, sets, like how many sets there were, how many songs you needed. I had no idea about using a sound man. So, I'm learning all this stuff. I get to the gig and I'm just kind of like nervous as heck. Got everything laid out. I'm lugging all my heavy equipment around. I set it all up. It's set up. We're ready to go. And I'm thinking, all right, we start that gig and things go pretty well. I learn a little bit, but I didn't know really much at all. I kind of just stuck to the music, stood there in one place, let the sound guy do his thing, So I don't think it was much of a performance, if you will.
Well, let's stop for just a second. I know you said when you started your lessons and stuff, you didn't have a guitar. So at what point in this process did you actually buy a guitar, and which one was it?
Let's see. First, I borrowed a guitar, and I don't know what model it was because it was like a no-name model, and it had 2 strings on it.
That's all you need, right?
Yeah, that's, so I'm thinking, all right, well, I guess I'll be a Black Sabbath cover band, So anyway, I'm learning that. I didn't know how to tune a guitar. And at that time, they didn't have the nice tuning pedals or whatever. I think I was blowing into something for like the C note and trying to match it, and everything.
Nice.
It was unbelievable. So got rid of that. I'm like, this isn't going to work. So I ended up going to the local music shop. And my first guitar, I remember, was a white Kramer Striker. And I bought the Kramer guitar, and I wanted that brand because that was the brand that Eddie Van Halen played. So I'm like, I need a Kramer. I want the hockey stick headpiece like he had, from his Kramer guitar that he had. So that's what I went after. I didn't care how it sounded. I didn't care how it was set up. I just wanted that one because that was what Eddie Van Halen played.
And did you want it all striped out like that too?
Yeah, I did, and I'm thinking, okay, it's white. How do I get this thing to really look like an Eddie Van Halen guitar, And I had no idea how to do it or anything like that. So I think I added some stickers or something to try and make it cool and
jazz,
stuff like that.
Jazz it up.
Yeah, it was out of tune, but at least it had stickers on it.
So this initial band you joined, what was it? What was it like?
This initial band was with the guys, I think at the time, they were probably about 20 years older than me. And they wanted to play Creedence Clearwater Revival type stuff, those type of songs. And
classic
some blues.
rock.
Yeah, classic rock, little Eric Clapton and things like that. So I'm like, all right, that sounds cool. So we did some of that. We did a few gigs. And the one gig I remember distinctly was it's this festival gig, and the guy who booked it in the band was like, this is going to be huge. My brother, who's in another band that was really popular, just played this festival the night before. It was, blowout. It's going to be great. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So we drive down, and I won't say where it was, so I don't offend anybody in that town, but it's this festival, and I get there, and they're like, okay, set up. I'm like, where do you set up? And it was on the back of a semi-trailer bed. So there's little stairs, and I get up there, and it's just covered in mud. This trailer bed is totally covered in mud. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, okay, I'm setting up, loading my big, I think I had a 4x12 cabinet that I'm lugging up there.
Something easy to lift up there.
Yeah, with I think I was playing a JCM 2000 Marshall head at the time, so I'm lugging that thing up there, my pedal board, and we start playing this gig, and I want to say it started at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon because it was like this little tiny festival, wasn't really big, but at this time, the sun, it was in dead summer, and the sun is beating on me so bad. I think I'm 3 songs in and I feel like my face is just peeling away, from the sun just beating on it. I got to find suntan lotion. I'm going to flip and die out here, We have no water. We don't have anything to drink. We got like 45 minutes left to go. And I'm over here just, my face is burnt. I could feel it just burning off. So I'm like, I don't have suntan lotion. I'm like, wait a minute. I got chapstick in my pocket.
Oh.
So I grab my chapstick out and I'm putting it all over my face, all over everything, man. On my ears, everything, down my neck, all over to get through this gig. And let me tell you, chapstick is a great sun blocker. It worked great,
It did work.
It did.
I was expecting you to tell me it didn't
No,
work.
because I even looked at the thing
to a
and
crisp.
I looked at it and it said it had some type of sunscreen, like some percentage. I don't know what it
Right.
was, but I'm like, this is gonna work, and it was great,
It was nasty, is what it was.
Yes, but it worked and got through that gig. Barely had a crowd at it, I think. In fact, one guy out in the crowd, and we had a break, and he must have been a musician at the time because he's like, "Hey, you need to turn your treble down on your amp." So I'm like, "Okay, thanks. I appreciate the feedback." So that was the comment I got back from that first gig at that place.
So you mentioned Eddie and the guitar. I mean, obviously an early influence, but who were some other influences you had?
Oh, wow.
Besides the guy who invented chapstick.
Yeah. I was really, at the time, into Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
Liked him a lot. He was fantastic. Eric Clapton, of course, all the greats. I liked Jimi Hendrix. I remember thinking him, but I was like, I could just never play that stuff. But I will tell you this thing. This is a little story. My oldest sister, Stephanie, we're watching MTV, I think, at the time. And now she's like 8 years older than me. So I think she came back from college or something at the time. But Eddie Van Halen came on. And I think I was talking about her because I was into music and this and that. I said, who do you like as your favorite guitar player? And she told me Eddie Van Halen too. And I'm thinking, he does the tapping. He does all this stuff and everything.
She's thinking he's cute.
Maybe. Yeah, But I'm thinking it's because he's just phenomenal on the guitar. And this was a big learning thing for me when she said this. I mean, this stuck with me forever. Like, because she wasn't in the guitar playing, I guess, as much. I mean, she knew he was fantastic. But she said the one thing I like about him and why I like him the most is because he smiles and he has fun on stage. And that hit a chord with me at that time. Because I remember thinking, it's not the tapping, it's not the virtuosity, it's not any of that master playing. She's associating with him smiling back at the crowd.
Happiness.
Yeah, and being happy and looking like they're having fun. And that's what resonated with her in the crowd. That stuck with me because that was important. You could think of virtuosity and playing, but if you can't resonate to that crowd, sometimes it just doesn't work. So you could be the best player in the world, but...
So what steps have you taken now to incorporate that into your playing?
Well, instead of frowning like I normally do and
You get the rock star mug.
yeah, I'm trying to look cool and everything on stage, so I don't want to smile too much. But no, I actually, that's one thing talking about that, like now, there's a lot of feedback people in the audience and friends and stuff have given me, look at the crowd, make sure your eye contact with the crowd. They want that, smiling, look like you're having a good time, interacting with your band members, having fun, playing off each other. That's a big thing. And just really look like you guys are, as a whole, are enjoying yourselves on stage, really having fun. Your stage presence resonates so much more, I think, than necessarily the sound to the crowd than just playing and standing there sometimes. Now, you could be a great musician and do that and it works, but you could also be like me, but you go out there, you have a good time, have some fun, resonate with that crowd and they enjoy it, So it's that whole feeling of, giving that smile back to them. Connecting to them. That's it. You got to connect with them.
Well, that's pretty cool, too. I mean, let me ask you this. I know we had David Ray from the band Vaughan Ray. He was on the show a few weeks ago, and he was talking about playing at the Exit Inn. And I know you have an experience playing at the Exit Inn down in Nashville. It's an iconic music venue. Can you tell me about your experience?
Yeah. So the Exit Inn, how that happened, I ended up working at General Electric GE, and I was playing in a band. So I started with this band, which was like the next level of musicianship, and we were doing really good. And at the time, our singer just flat out quit, left us high and dry. I think we had a gig in a week. So everyone's panicking. Hey, who do you know? Who do you know? Can you contact somebody? So I'm like texting friends, and I text my one colleague who goes to see local bands all the time. And I know he's like into all the local bands, knows everybody. So he was like, yeah, call this one girl. She's at GE as well. She's playing in the GE band. So I reached out to her.
Just the simple fact that GE has a band is kind of funny.
It is. It's interesting. When I found out, and I think it was 13 years after I'd been there that I even know they had a corporate band. But anyway, it's cool. But so I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, can you come in? We have this gig. Oh, I know what the gig was. It was to be on the news of all things, because it was Backpack for Kids, like right before they go to school. And the news was going to be there, and they wanted a local band to play some music while, they're selling these backpacks and all this stuff, and the news was coming. So we're like panicking. We can't cancel. And the one girl, and I'll mention her, Stacy Berry, she was fantastic. She came in, and she had 5 days to learn. I don't think we did a full 3 sets or anything, but a bunch of songs. She came in, learned the songs, killed them. We did that show there with the news and everything, got some news time. She was the one who said, hey, do you know we have a GE band, and you'd probably be good to fit into this GE band. So I'm like, I had no flipping idea that GE has a band, never did in a million years that I ever imagined they would have a corporate band. So I'm like, yeah, I'll show up. I mean, do I get out of work for this thing, or how does this work? So I'm thinking I'll sign up. We'll go, during work hours, go jam a little bit. I got an excuse. My boss can't come complain to me. Hey, you got to be on your office, So I'm thinking this is great. Well, find out it's actually after work hours and everything, typical. But I'm like, that's fine. So we start playing together in this corporate band. And then that's when, I'm meeting a lot of new people in GE and a lot of great musicians in this band. And we had a horn section. I mean, I think we had a saxophone player, trumpet player, trombone player, keyboard player, all
one hell of a band.
Yeah. So we had like everything in there, so it was a very good potpourri of people, if you will. And I'm playing with them like, this is cool. And then they said, well, we do the battle of the corporate bands. I'm like, what is the battle of the corporate bands? They're like,
who knew these companies would have bands?
Yeah. So they're like, yeah, if we go, the way it works is you go and you have like different areas to where like 5 bands go and compete in this area, 5 bands go and compete in this area, and they take the top 2 out of the 5. And then you have a chance to go do the final battle at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, I'm like, holy cow, is GE paying for our travel and all that? They're like, yeah, they pay for everything. I'm thinking, I'm in, free travel, free food, I'm down for that. So we rehearsed, and I think we had to only get like 4 songs down for that one. So we rehearsed and did our songs. And then the first gig was down at the Exit Inn in Tennessee. So we go down there on like a work day. We traveled down the night before, go down and play the gig, and the Exit Inn I thought was killer, because I'm looking at all the walls over there with all the musicians and everything, and I'm like, wow, this is like...
It seems like such a small venue from the outside, and
yeah.
You walk in, it's a pretty large-sized venue, and everybody and their mother has played there at some point or another.
Definitely. I'm seeing everybody from Red Hot Chili Peppers to you name it, they were on this wall, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And it was the first time that I actually had a green room. So
you're moving up in the world.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow, this is really cool. You know, I can sit back in this green room. It's like got some food and drinks back there while the other bands are playing and everything. So we ended up doing our 4 songs, played it, had a blast. I mean, it was so much fun. And, you know, I think it had a little balcony. People were over there. It was packed. It was really fun. Long story short, with that year, though, we didn't make the first cut. We went against, I think, I don't know, Mattel Toys and somebody else.
They're known for their band.
Yeah. So some of the other corporations, and then one corporation, the band was phenomenal. I mean, I think they were a fake corporation that was just a real professional band. But so they moved on. So we said, all right, we're going to try and do it again next year, you know.
The politics of the corporate bands.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, next year we try it again. Same thing. We go down to the exit in. And, you know, it was great. Now I got a little experience under my belt, you know, of this place and how it is. So we ended up played really good, changed up the song list a little bit and did some things, you know. One of the cool things I thought was really cool was we played ZZ Top's Tush song.
Yeah.
And we all ended up taking a little solo. So I took a guitar solo. The trumpet player took a trumpet solo. The trombone player had a little solo in it, you know, and we're all playing like this little blues. And I think people really dug that a lot. So it was cool to have all the instruments kind of highlighted in their own little section on that. Ended up making it. We made the cut for that one. So now we're moving on to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was
the big time.
Big time, yeah. So that was cool. So then we're like, okay, we're going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, getting ready. We're just going to stick with the same 4 songs that we played, you know, because we didn't want to change anything up. I think it was like 3-4 weeks after that. So we travel up there.
That's funny you mentioned that. I guess we don't think about that from the spectator side, what songs you play and changing up the set list or things like that. But that can mean a lot to somebody.
Well, yeah. And that's what we thought about, because we're like, well, should we change it up? And then we're like, well, we've only really been rehearsing these 4 songs for like the longest time.
You've mastered the 4.
Yes. We got them down. We know everyone's cues. We got the timing down. We got the starts down. We got the stops down. Everybody knows what it is. So our big change up for this one was, well, we're going to start with that song Tush by ZZ Top. But the difference this time is the 4 of us are going to go out, guitar player, drums, bass, and singer are going to go out, start it. And then the horn section that's going to take their solo is going to come out behind the curtain afterwards for a little dynamic, you know. So that kind of worked out pretty well. They like that. We're playing, you know, and everyone's kind of into it. Then all of a sudden that dynamic of adding that new element came in, and they were like, oh, wow, you know, saw that and everything and stuff. So that was pretty cool and interesting. But when we got there, the best part of it was we get there, you know, great hotel. This hotel room, it had to be a suite or something like that. I mean, I had more room than I had in my house in this hotel room. And I'm even like calling my friends, man, you got to come up here. I got room for you, you know, come on up, hang out, you know, I got couches, I got TVs, I got everything in this room, you know, it was really cool. And then it was nice because my mom came up, my 2 sisters came up for that. My best friend came up for it. So I had a lot of company there with that. And then we did a little pre-sound check in the morning. All the bands did, which went well. And then they gave us backstage passes to like tour everything, go through it. And then they took us in their vault, which is like unseen to, unless they're showcasing it. This is like all their, which was, I thought was the coolest thing, because this was like all the stuff, you know.
All the memorabilia.
Yeah, all the memorabilia that people may have not seen at the time, or they may not put out. We got to go through that and look at everything, you know. We couldn't touch anything, you know, but it was really cool. That was a lot of fun. And then I think we were like second to the last out of 8 bands to go. And I will say this is another learning experience. When you're second to the last at 8 bands out to go, and there's a lot of free drinks, don't drink so much before the show, you know, because we all played and I'm listening to it. I'm thinking, wow, we sound fantastic. We sound so good. I mean, this is killer. You know, crowd loves us. We have energy. We're doing this. And then I went back and listened to it, and I was like, whew, yeah, I think I May had that one too many on that night, so I should have cut it back a little bit. Needless to say, we didn't win the whole battle of the corporate bands, but we had a whole heck of a lot of fun.
Well, that's a good point. Other than not drinking right before you go on stage for a competition, what other kind of challenges were there in that whole process?
Well, the challenges that we faced a lot were, now that we had the normal 4 or 5 piece, but now we added a whole horn section. The biggest challenge was everybody had different ideas on what we should do.
How do you handle it?
Well, I don't think we handled it the best, but we just kept kind of talking and going through, and everybody wanted to fight for their songs. I think we should do this song. I think we should do that song. I think we should do it this way and everything. And then how did we handle that? I remember, I think some people were pretty...
Fist fights?
No, there was no fist fights, but I think a couple people were really passive about it. So you have your passive people who are like, I'll do whatever, I don't care. And then you have some, which I think was me, more like, this is where I think our strengths are. This is where I think we excel, because some of the songs that other people wanted, not everybody was there yet, or we didn't have the right sound. That was one thing, like for me, when I went through, I know I'm going in, they're providing the back line. And at this time, I know I'm getting a JCM 800 Marshall amp. And I was not familiar with that amp myself. So I don't know how to get like a really good clean sound. I don't know how to get a semi-distorted sound. I don't know how to get a, heavy distorted sound. I don't really know how to use this amp as much. So the songs that everybody was saying was like, I would need like 4 different sounds. And I don't have pedals to drive all these sounds. So that was my biggest thing, is like, hey, I know where my limitations are. I kind of have maybe 1, maybe 2 different sounds on this guitar and amp. So I'm not going to play like Barry Manilow with a Metallica type tone, type of thing. So we understood, where our limitations were as far as equipment wise goes and what sounds we can get. And then a lot of it too came down to a lot of the vocalists, and thought, this is what I'm most comfortable on. This is what I think I could sing the best and remember the best.
So were you singing a lot of the songs at that time?
I didn't sing at all. I wanted to, and I tried to sing a few songs, and I have no idea why they didn't want me to sing.
It might be one idea why they don't want you to sing. Probably the same idea they don't want me to sing.
I mean, I don't understand the difference. Okay, I'm a little flat, I'm a little sharp. It all evens out in the end.
You're still hitting notes?
Yeah, but no, I have the worst singing voice. That's one thing I was not blessed with, You
and me both, buddy.
Yeah, that's why I play guitar, because if I could sing, I would sing, but I can't, so I got to play guitar.
Well, I was going to ask you that. If you could be the lead singer over the guitar player, which would you choose? They're both key positions.
I would definitely choose lead singer. Lead singer by far. I think that would be the most fun for me, being the front man, being the stage presence, leading that. And then I could dictate like all the other singers do to me and say, I can't sing that song, so we can't play it.
Right.
There
you go. Well, a guitar player is almost at that same exact level, right?
Well, we're the second tier,
right, but you're that close.
So,
being the bass player that I have been in the past, I didn't have those kind of options.
Well, the bass player never gets a say.
No.
That's usually how it works.
The bass player is the one who has to provide the gear and do the sound.
Yeah. And they provide all the beat and rhythm and everything, but they get no say.
Well, that's talking about your early days, how things started. So now you're playing in a band called Britney's Lipstick. Let's start with the gear now. How has the gear changed from then to now? What are you playing these days?
Yeah, so before that, I was lugging around. I was playing a Marshall Silver Jubilee head, and I had 2 4x12 cabinets, because for me, I know a lot of people like you could use a 1x12. For me, a 4x12 always gave me that really full sound that I wanted on stage. A 1x12 just did not. And for me, it had to be a 12-inch speaker, which I usually use the Celestians V30s, I think they're called.
Well, if you come in with a hard rock and metal background.
Yeah, so I had to have that. I always thought it looked cooler too. I wanted the wall, 2 of them,
Being a Van
I kind of got ixnayed on that. But I did want the wall of, 4x12 cabinets all over and stuff like that. So I was playing through that, and I had a pedal board that was huge. I think I had every pedal on it, but my favorite pedal of all time is always just a wah pedal, an expression pedal for a wah. Because to me, that's when you talk about would you want to be a singer first? The wah pedal lets me be the singer, because that I could get the more vocal tone out when I start the solo on that. So that is really the main pedal. If you ever ask me what pedal would I always want, it would always be a wah pedal.
Just being more expressive.
Yes, totally. Almost to the point to where I feel like I'm singing with that pedal and everything. I would even take that over my tuner. I'd rather be out of tune.
I don't know if I'd rather you be out of tune, but I get it. So what other kind of gear do you have? What kind of guitar are you playing these days?
Well, from there, I started with that, and I've always I started playing Fenders, Strats. I got a Telecaster that I really like, but the single coils pickups were something that just didn't give me that full sound that I wanted. So
That rockin' sound, or just thicker sound to me. It was for the type of stuff we were playing. So that's when I went to the Les Pauls. And I actually went back. I had a 1987 Les Paul Custom that I got on a family vacation when we went to see my oldest sister down in Washington, D.C. She was working down in Washington, D.C., working for Bill Clinton at the time. And she had a tour down there, and we happened to go past the music shop down there. And I saw this Les Paul, and I'm like, oh, I want that. So I whipped that thing out, and I started using this 1987 Les Paul Custom, which had the best sound that I can imagine. The only problem with that is it weighed 82 pounds or some crazy amount. I mean, it was the heaviest flipping guitar. Right.
After, 4 hours of gigging, I'm slumped over, my shoulder's hurting, know.
That's why Slash always looks like he's close to the ground.
Yeah, And then the Les Paul, too, the neck was something that I just adapted to. It felt like home.
Smaller, right?
For me, it was like a little flatter than the Fenders that gave me this freedom, but I don't know. And then the back, this one wasn't the big baseball bat size back. It was a little thinner. And I didn't like the really thin back ones, but I like the medium size. So this one just fit. And I don't know, my fingers just moved really well. And then go get your guitar set up properly. That is huge, because when you buy them, they are so hard to play. You get a proper setup with the truss rod adjusted, your strings adjusted to the right height. I mean, it's night and day difference on how you play that thing.
And that's amazing. I remember back when I was playing bass heavily, I went to Michael Tobias, the guy who designed Michael Tobias or the Tobias bass guitars, one of the best guitars in the world. And he's out of upstate New York over by Woodstock. So I went to his shop, and he built me two, an electric and an acoustic. And they were so much different than playing any other guitar I ever put in my hands, just because he knew what he was doing, and he put them together right, set them up right, and they were just so comfortable to play.
It's so
It
true.
didn't change the ability that I couldn't play, but they were more comfortable than the other ones I was playing.
Well, it makes it more enjoyable to play because it feels more comfortable. You still sound like you
still
sound.
sound like crap, but that's all right.
Yeah, it feels good. So I was using that, and then I got rid of that. I'm like, man, this is just killing my back. And then 2013, they hollowed the chambered out the body to cut weight out. So I was like, I got to get one of those. So I ended up buying a 2013 Les Paul Standard that I still use today. It's been great. In fact, I just had the frets kind of repolished because they are so worn down.
That just means you're enjoying it.
Yeah, the electronics have had to been replaced, I think, in the toggle switch because things get broken and things like that, but I've been playing that. But now, since I got the lighter guitar, I got rid of all the amps and all the cabinets. So I'm using a Line 6 Helix light, and that thing has been phenomenal. I mean, the load in and load out now has been so much better. And the sound guys are happier, too, because they don't have to deal with all my feedback and,
They're happier they get a direct signal. But for you playing on stage, how does that feel for you? Do you notice a difference between not having that air pressure against you?
I do notice that. That's one thing. It's nice, but I'm playing through a monitor or either in-ear monitors now, whatever it is, and I totally do miss that air pressure coming, that sound in the back, it's not the same, you know. So once I can afford roadies, I'm going back to the amp, you know, and the cabinets, you know. But until then, I got
to be pretty cheap.
Yeah. Until then, when I'm loading this stuff in and out, 2 a.m. or whatever it is, I'm going with the lighter side, and I'm sacrificing some of that, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it also depends on where you're playing. I mean, when you're playing the big arenas, I get it. You get the big setup, and you got somebody else loading your gear. But when you're playing the smaller stuff, the concert halls or venues, then there's nothing wrong with going with the Line 6 and going with a direct signal.
It actually, and that's the other thing, because I was dead set against them from the beginning, and my friends kept getting them, and I'm like, I didn't like the way they sounded. I thought they sounded like a computer.
Well, the original ones sounded pretty thin, but as time goes on, like everything else, they're developing. They sound pretty good right now.
Yeah, they do. And I'm so used to it now that sometimes I plug into my old amplifiers and it sounds different to my ears now. I'm so used to that sound now, so I've kind of adapted to it and really enjoy it.
I remember when they first came out, I was in Nashville, we were recording country records, and someone came in without their gear. Like in Nashville, when the session players come in, they come in with Cartage. It's a company that comes in and sets up their gear for them. So that way they can bounce from studio to studio to studio within one day. But they came in with their Line 6, and they just started playing it. I was like, okay, what's missing here? There's something missing.
Yeah.
But at that time, I thought, wow, this sounds very thin. It didn't quite give me that feel that I was looking for. But now you can barely tell the difference.
Yeah, the technology is getting unbelievable. I see even like... I heard like Metallica is using some type of that instead of amplifiers, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I hear like Steve Vai has got something now because he travels with something.
Yeah,
so
Steve Vai is always up on the technology.
Yeah, so I mean, it's crazy how good it's getting. I still would always want an amp though. That was the other thing with amplifiers. I'm not that great at dealing with a million knobs. So I would always pick an amplifier that just had the 5 knobs because I could handle
Keep
that.
it simple.
Yeah, but something about an amplifier in a cabinet on stage and controlling my own volume to where every set, you as a guitar player, you jack up that volume a little bit more every set as it goes on, So I lost that control.
That reminds me, we had Chris Franz on the show a while back, and Chris is a drummer. But he goes out on the road as a guitar tech for Steve Miller and Jason Bonham. And to me, it's crazy that I'm picturing a drummer adjusting the guitars for such famous artists. But he does, and he's really good at it. I mean, he's amazing at creating, not only getting their gear and getting what they need when they're on stage, but he's amazing at, setting it all up for them.
Yeah.
So it is a talent. It's an art within itself.
And that's the other thing I'll tell you, too, is because we use different sound guys at different times. And let me tell you, there's a whole world of difference in the sound guy you hire, too.
Well, yeah.
I mean, some guys, we just used one at the last gig, first time we ever used this guy. Unbelievably good. Best sound I've ever heard. Everything flowed. Some of the guys in the past, we had one guy, tell you a little story about some gigging here and hiring sound guys. So we hired a sound guy, and everybody says he's great, he's phenomenal, all these kudos to him and everything that we get. So we get to the gig, and we usually get there 2 hours before a gig so we could set up, do a sound check, and then start 2 hours later in case there's any issues. We got time to remediate any problems or anything like that. This guy calls us. We're like, hey, we're down to an hour and a half. Where you at? He's like, well, I'm stuck in traffic. I'm coming back from, I don't know where it was, Indiana, Tennessee, or whatever. I'll be there in like
someplace not here.
Yeah, in 45 minutes. We're like, what? So we're freaking out. It was the first time we're playing at this venue. So we're trying to make a good impression and everything. He shows up. We're unloading all his gear, all these big cabinets, loading them in and everything. And then we're trying to set him up. And then he's talking to us. And we're like, we got like 30 minutes, man. We don't have time to chat. We got to move, And every time he would stop, someone would ask him a question. He would start talking about it. He would stop what he's doing, not running cables, and we're like, don't ask him any questions. Don't talk to him, because we got to get this going. It ended up being the worst gig, worst sound. I think Oh my God. I mean, it wasn't the biggest venue in the world, but he had the volume so loud, I think we were shaking the windows in the place, Needless to say, we were never asked back again.
So from your point of view, what makes a good sound person?
What I've learned is somebody who is a musician, somebody who understands frequency and knows how to adjust frequencies, somebody who is on time, first of all, and somebody who has an ear for music and understands how to set all the instruments up. Like I wouldn't be a good sound man because I've never played drums. I really don't know anything about drums. So if I mic the drums, I wouldn't know how to set their frequencies and all that stuff, and keep it level with the bands or whatever you do. But like this guy, one of the things that he did was he was checking frequencies to make sure the lows, the mids, the highs were how they needed to be in the mix to make sure the guitars cut through, the bass is there, the vocals aren't feeding back. That was like something I think that was really phenomenal. So if you get somebody who's played the instruments, who knows a lot about the equipment, the technology, and has an understanding. And then also the other issue, we have sound guys who they set you up, do the sound check, turn you on, and then they're off drinking for the rest of the night.
Of course.
And we're like, we got problems. We're like, where's the sound guy? We're looking around trying to get the attention, So somebody who also sits there and pays attention to the needs of the band at the time.
Well, I mean, that's part of it too. I mean, you're supposed to be there to, once you get everything set up, you still need to ride the faders and pump up guitar solos and different things throughout the night to keep the sound as exciting as the band is performing.
That's it. And that's the other thing. If you're running sound, maybe get the set list and understand, what's the key instrument? Because maybe it's keyboards in this part, like it's Van Halen's Jump. Boost that up a little bit because that's the main part of the song. And then for the next song, there's no solos, bump it up a tad if the boost pedal's not enough,
right.
But you got to work each song the way it is,
When I first moved to Nashville, I worked in live sound. The first gig I got was Keith Urban, and it was just about keeping everything balanced, whether it be, like you're mentioning, the frequencies or the levels. So each song has a different area where it needs to be balanced. Like you're mentioning, if there's a piano focus on one song, or if there's a guitar focus on another song, or if there's a solo coming up, you just need to be aware of what's going on and honor that. You don't have to be flashy. You don't have to try every trick in the book.
Well, and that's a good point. When you say flashy, the other thing is we had a sound guy on the vocals, everything would echo at the end.
Yeah.
And we're like, enough with the echo,
Right.
There's only so much echo you could put on everything. But at the end of every song, the last lyric went, boom, boom,
delay.
boom. Yeah, the delay, So, yeah, it gets annoying. You got to get a good sound person,
What do you enjoy most about it?
I think the biggest thing I enjoy the most is getting there 2 hours before the gig, playing 4 hours, and unloading for 1 hour and making $50. I think that's the most the most enjoyable part.
There you go.
No, I'm just kidding. For me, I just enjoy playing music, and I love playing it live. I can't sit in a bedroom and play to a recording. I have to get out there. I love the camaraderie of the guys I'm with, the band I'm with. I love seeing the audience. And this is something too. When the audience gives us some energy back, our whole energy elevates as well, and we give it right back to you. So we've had nights to where the crowd is just so good. And my playing, I mean, Steve Vai would be like, man, that's a good guitar player on those nights, That's how good it gets elevated,
Steve is awesome. I love Steve.
So that's important, and playing to a good crowd and enjoying that, seeing that feedback. But just playing live music for me, when things are going good, like the sound is good, I'm hearing myself good, we're all gelling on all cylinders. I mean, it's just a feeling I can't even describe. It's just so much fun, so positive. And looking over at your bandmates and they're enjoying themselves, and everything. And you're in that groove and it's just flowing. Man, it's a great, amazing feeling.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I always enjoyed it too. I mean, I didn't get to play it at the same scale that you are, but I always enjoyed my time on stage. But let's step away from that for a moment. Let's get into the real stuff.
All right.
Tell me about some backstage antics or stories that we wouldn't normally get to hear.
All right. You're going to Ask me that one, huh? Oh, man. Backstage antics. God, I got to watch what I say on those. Sorry. Wasn't expecting that question. No, I know we did, and I feel kind of bad about it, but there was one gig we did where our buddy's band was playing the set before us. This was probably about 10 years back, so they still all had the amplifiers with the cabinets. So we would go as they're playing and start pulling out their cords on their amplifiers at the back, and they'd be looking around. So we would mess with their sound on that stuff a little bit. And then there was one time where we got water balloons, and there was a upper level deck above the stage, and we would just drop water balloons on them, and things like that. So it was fun. We made sure we stayed away from the electronics with the water balloons because we know how important that
nice
is, So that was a few of the backstage stuff,
So what do you got coming up next?
There's a bunch of different gigs for this year coming up. So we got that going on. And then I'm also working in another band with some good friends of mine as well, and my girlfriend. It's going to be called IP6, that we're working on some different songs. And
Does that have a meaning behind it?
It does. But since we're still in the infancy stages, there's a funny story on how that name came up, but we said we're not going to mention it for now because we want everyone
Nobody listens to the show. Don't worry about it.
We want everyone to try and figure out what IP6 means to them, so we'll tell them.
How'd you come up with the name Britney's Lipstick?
Oh, wow. Okay. I could tell you there's multiple stories to the name of Britney's Lipstick. So the G-rated version was one of the band members was dating a girl who was named Britney and had got lipstick on him.
Gotcha.
So that's how that came up. And I will say they actually came up with the name before I joined. I joined the band when they already had the name. So this was the stories that I was being told. And then the non-so-fun side, which they kind of like to stick to, is that they were trying to think of a cool 80s hair metal-ish type band, and they liked Britney Spears.
Britney Fox was taken?
Yeah, Britney Fox was taken, so they liked Britney Spears at the time, and then they were trying to fit something at the end of it, so that's how that came up.
My favorite 80s band name was Make Lisa Rich.
Oh, nice.
It was a band out of Boston. I just love the name. For whatever reason, it's stuck with me ever since. They've never done anything really big, but that name has just stuck with me, and there's very few names that stick with me. All right, sir. Good. Well, we do this thing here we call Unsung Heroes, where we take a moment to shine a light on somebody's work behind the scenes or somebody who has supported you along the way. Do you have anybody you would like to shine a little light on?
Yeah. I definitely want to give a shout out to my oldest daughter, Paige. She's been a dancer, a singer from a young girl up, phenomenal. And she actually got the role to be an actor because she's into acting now, going to acting school, which she's going to be graduating. And she was in a movie called Starling Girl. And then she did all the choreography dance scenes for that whole movie. So to my son, Logan, as well, he's been an inspiration to me. He's a big football player now in college, doing football and doing really good, successful things, working hard. And then my youngest daughter, Addison, of course, she's what I call my mini-me. She's like me in a little version, so we got that bond. Also, my girlfriend, Amy, she's been phenomenal, totally supportive, musician herself, bass player, violinist, singer, and we're doing the IP6 together with her. That is really cool when you can do that.
Special Agent IP6.
So shout out to her for all the support and everything she's given me. She's just been phenomenal. To my mom, obviously, and I can't thank my mom enough, and my two sisters. They're just fantastic. I had the best family growing up in the world, so can't thank them enough. And my dad, he was most unbelievable man in my life. Unfortunately, cancer took him back in 2011. Which was really sad, but he was phenomenal. But I know he's looking down, and I feel like I'm kind of living through his life a little bit, where he said he always wanted to be a drummer. I think quite become a drummer, but, I kind of got on stage where I think he would have loved it.
A big thanks to Garrett for taking the time to share his stories with us, and thank you for taking the time to hang with me here. I really do appreciate it. If you know another music fan that would enjoy this episode, please be sure to pass it along. You can do just that and find the link to everything mentioned over at jfranzi.com/episode 66. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Jay Franzi Show. Make sure you visit us at jfranzi.com. Follow, connect, and say hello. This episode has been brought to you by VR Knives, your source for 100% custom knives made by a true rock star. So, if you're in the market for a new piece of art, reach out to VR Knives. 407-421-5528. 407-421-5528.